Dear listeners, this is Ahmer Sohail Basraa from Radio Pakistan Gilgit, and it is indeed a matter of pride and pleasure for us that today His Excellency Bernhard Schlagheck is with us. He is the German ambassador to Pakistan. Listeners, before we go into kind of a conversation with His Excellency, let me tell you something about very cordial relations we've got with Germany. They started actually in 1951, and since then the people of Pakistan and Germany, they are very much close to each other. The feelings of respect and honor and trust we are cherishing since 1951. And Germany, my romance actually. Yes, dear listeners, one of the very old civilizations on earth, 600,000 years back. And it was Phanerozoic eon, I must say. And when the very first living object came on earth, it was in Germany. Geographically, it was in Germany. And Federal Republic of Germany is one of the, as I've said, oldest. And the most important thing is Germany is a land of art, culture and sophistication, and it's our honor that we've got today His Excellency with us. Sir, how are you feeling after coming here in Pakistan?
Well, I came roughly 1.5 years ago, and I never had been to Pakistan before, so I had a lot of expectations certainly, but also a lot of images in my head about Pakistan, about Pakistani culture, cuisine, way of living. And I have to say, all these images I had been trumped by reality. I mean, it's much more interesting than I thought it would be. So I'm very, very happy here. It's one of the most interesting countries I ever served in, and it's hugely fascinating. Not only landscape-wise, people. I cherish the interaction with people, but also politics. I mean, it's lively. Sometimes it's convoluted, if I may say, but it's always
very
fascinating,
vibrant.
Very vibrant and very vivid.
Okay. You've been at different places in the world, and if I ask you to draw a kind of comparison between other parts of the world where you've been living and here in Pakistan, how would you rate it?
Every place you are living in has something for it, and something I would say particular. What I would say about Pakistan is the great diversity, and to some extent I would say the relationship with the Pakistani people usually have with their immediate family, but also with the community, greater community, and their region. And there is a huge sense of belonging in Pakistan that I really appreciate. So it's the diversity of the landscape, of the people, of the culture, music, fashion, you name it. And on the other hand, this sense of belonging to a community, to family, this very great affinity towards the most close you have. Very good mixture, and I found that in that combination very rarely elsewhere.
Okay, Your Excellency, would you like to tell us that how many places have you visited so far in Pakistan? Like which series?
Well, I went to the obvious places, of course. The big urban centers, I mean Karachi, Lahore, but also Faisalabad, Multan, Sialkot, of course Peshawar. I traveled a bit. I mean, I took a train ride to Karachi, which was really a great experience.
Adventurous?
No, it was not really adventurous. It was really interesting. I mean, because you see much more of the structure of the landscape and of the people when you are traveling either by car or what I prefer by train. So I even intended to go to Quetta by train, but then no, I had not been there, but I intend to go there, and then my security people, they said, no, I mean, you cannot go by train to Quetta. But I really regretted it, because it's so good. I mean, we had a stopover, I mean, for some, I don't know, on the way to Karachi, there was I don't know, a kind of emergency, so we had to wait for 30 minutes.
Mr. Channa is actually from Karachi, and when you talked about you've been there, he got excited.
I love this kind of, you know, approaching towards this big and wonderful city at the seaside.
And I'm from Lahore.
You're from
Say
Lahore,
something
right.
about Lahore as well.
Yeah, well, Lahore is, of course, I would say I mean, culturally, it's the most fascinating city of.
Very young, very historical.
Absolutely. There is no other place that you would compare to Lahore when it comes to cultural richness.
Actually, Islamabad is a planned city. It was constructed in 60s.
Absolutely.
And that's why the real culture of Pakistan is not depicted from
absolutely. And it's well planned. It's well planned, but it's a bit artificial.
It is artificial. Yeah, this is the right word that you said about.
I think you have seen also Gilgit-Baltistan. So now, how can what is your feeling?
Well, Gilgit-Baltistan, I would say here again two remarks. One, mesmerizing landscape, mesmerizing nature, with some challenges, of course. I mean, environmental degradation and so. But I mean, you are really, as I said, I came for the first time to Gilgit-Baltistan, and you are really flabbergasted by the sheer beauty of the landscape and of the nature. And then secondly, and I was really surprised about that, here, even more than in the rest of Pakistan, this sense of community. And I spoke to a number of communities. I was really fascinated by the
very
degree.
adhere to each other and always helping out people.
And you
living
see
here.
even things that you don't see that often in Pakistan. For instance, this kind of enrollment and participation of women, for instance. You don't see that often in the rest of Pakistan. And it was really, we saw some social initiative Germany is supporting and funding. That we saw a carpentry workshop run by women, for women. It is
very nice and very generous of Germany that they've invested a lot of funds here just to elevate the standard of people, especially in the fields of education and health.
Yes, but we are also in the environmental sector, power. I mean, we try to make a difference, and we have been here for decades now.
For decades. As I said earlier, since we got our diplomatic relations since 1951, we'd been very close. And I don't think in history there is any downfall in our relations with Germany. They are always like escalating up and up and up.
Well, there were some ups and downs. I mean, particularly during military rule, we were a bit more reserved, I have to say. But since at least
German people believe in democracy. That's why that's quite natural. Like if there's kind of undemocratic things in any part of the world, you people have got kind of cold shoulder to that attitude.
True. I mean, we have
it's natural and very healthy.
Well, we have made our own experience with a non-democratic and indeed very bad regime in Germany. So, I mean, we tend to be indeed an equitable and democratic society as much as we can.
Okay, before we touch upon different other things, I would like to ask a question. You came here in Gilgit-Baltistan and you're from Germany. Did you find any kind of similarity?
You cannot compare it to the sheer massivity and the sheer beauty of the landscape here. You cannot compare it to Germany. Even the German south. It's simply outstanding what you're seeing here. But when it comes to the people, I think there is some, accuratesse that I sense in at least the people I spoke here. I was really surprised, and this kind of engagement for the community, but also for an issue. I mean, let's say environmental protection, or even catering. We saw some women cooperative, working on, I would say, streamlining value chain in agriculture.
They are working more than men, rather.
Yes,
and
perhaps sometimes better than men.
Better than
yes,
men.
Sometimes. Yes.
And they are our pride, actually.
Absolutely.
And, we are very happy. Like, it's very far away from our other cities, which are called developed. But here, the participation of women in our different walks of life, that's really appreciating.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
It is. So you're here for 3 or 4 days?
For 4 days.
4 days. What kind of activities you'd been in?
If you are performing your inaugural visit, of course you have to see all the dignitaries, and that's great pleasure indeed. So I'm seeing the governor, and I have been seeing twice even the chief minister. I'm seeing various ministers. I visited this morning the university, and we're having a field trip to some of the projects we are funding here in Gilgit-Baltistan. We are meeting with civil society people, with human rights activists. We are meeting with the press, like people like you. We are also engaging with young people. Yesterday evening I had a meeting with some very impressive young filmmakers. They won a prize. We set out a prize for a short film on environmental protection, and funnily, all the winners basically were from Gilgit-Baltistan. And I spent myself and of course Mariam, we spent a lovely evening with these winners of our competition, and they had very interesting ideas. So I think there's a lot to expect from the next generation in Gilgit-Baltistan.
You see, in Germany, we've got philosophers of the world, and we've got thinkers and musicians as well, like Beethoven. Who can forget the symphonies of really mesmerizing and spellbound? Like, whenever I listen to Beethoven's symphonies, really very impressive. And as far as philosophies are concerned, Germany has imparted a lot to the world. Like different isms, impressionism and idealism, and even communism, like Karl Marx, changed the world throughout. So it's very nice having you here. How do you feel being a German?
Well, here in, first...
A very strong legacy on millennia, spread on millennia.
I'm, to some extent, I'm blessed by the very great sympathy Pakistani people have for Germans. Yeah. So I'm the beneficiary.
Our students' first choice to go there. They go there, they study there, and you've got very lavish kind of scholarships for our youth. And
indeed.
Very,
and I really appreciate of this very warm feelings towards me and us here in Pakistan. But then I also really value these kind of, we have some even cultural cross-fertilizations. Allama Iqbal, for instance, he was in Germany, he studied in Germany, he was
very much impressed by Friedrich Nietzsche.
Nietzsche, right, yes, he was. And he was even more impressed and to some extent also influenced by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, our predominant poet. And I'm always, and I have a circle of some friends in Islamabad, interested in philosophy and intellectual debate, and we are very often debating about this, I would say, mutual influencing between Goethe and Iqbal. And Goethe, he wrote a very famous piece, it was East-West Divan, and Iqbal responded to it. He lived 100 years later. They did not meet, but they were intellectually very, very much influenced by each other, and Iqbal responded by this very famous poem written in Farsi, message from the East. And it's really fascinating to see how he took up the lines and the ideas and the thoughts by Goethe and translated it into another cultural and religious, I would say, environment. And that's very great to see. That there's, a dialogue possible between the West, the non-Muslim West, and the Muslim East. And that is a very healthy, a very enriching dialogue. That was always, for me, a great intellectual reward.
I heard from your
CV.
Website and CV. So how did you create this kind of inclination for literature? Like it was family trait or?
Well,
or
as I said, I
culture?
hail from a very rural atmosphere. I mean, yes, my father, he was reading a lot, and I love reading. I even started to read a lot here in Pakistan. Unfortunately, I cannot read Urdu, I cannot read the local languages, Shina and the others. But, I mean, there's a lot be translated into English, and also I think there is a great English-speaking literature of Pakistani. So there are a number of very great
good writers,
writers writing in English.
Many of the Urdu literature have been translated into English as well.
Absolutely.
Also Sindhi, just like Shahjahan Salo is the big poet was of Sindh and Pakistan. So in German language, I think it is translated in English, German. And she was Schimmel, I think.
Anne-Marie Schimmel.
Anne-Marie Schimmel, yes.
Yeah, Anne-Marie Schimmel, she is another icon. I mean, Anne-Marie Schimmel is another
admirer, lover Iqbal.
Yeah, well, she is another icon.
She spent her life after Iqbal.
Absolutely. And she was a great scholar on, I would say, Islamic tradition and the Islamic faith. And she was very attached to the culture of Pakistan.
Is it something in the genes of German people to be intellectual and art lover and everything? Like,
well,
they produced hundreds and hundreds of like giants.
Well, I would not say it's in the genes, but yes, we are very much interested in, I mean, very many Germans are very much interested in, I would say, things that are to be seen beyond the genuine visibility. I mean, there are things, I mean, and to some extent that is also the case here in Pakistan. And Islam is a very spiritual religion.
Metaphysical aspects of reality.
Absolutely, and that is, of course, we are coming from different angles, but there are some areas where we meet, despite the fact that most of you are Muslims, most of us are Christians, and we have another, legacy, history.
But both religions have sprouted from same light.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So coming back to Gilgit-Baltistan, you visited many places here within a very limited time. Which place did you like most?
Well, the Hunda Valley is of course outstanding. Okay. I mean, it's lovely. I mean, we arrived there and it was raining, and I have nothing against rain.
Romantic.
I have nothing against. Sometimes I told Mariam, in my view, clouds, even dark clouds, are somehow like thoughts in the sky. So I have nothing against cloudy and rainy days. And then the next day the sun came up, and I have to say it was a totally different landscape. It was a totally different impression, and that made it so
it changes with every turning.
Absolutely,
like when you're traveling on KKH, and wherever you've got a kind of turning, there's entirely different kind of landscape.
Changing
and see the texture of mountains.
Yes.
How beautiful, lovely, and attractive.
I
very versatility in that.
I agree.
I was really spellbound. I came here for the very first time 4 years back, and I was lost.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So I mean,
just for a year. Just for a year.
They have to force me back to Islamabad now.
Did you go to Pandar as well?
No.
Is there really?
No, I did not.
Make a plan to go there.
No, I know. There's a lot to be seen still.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we have 4 days only, and of course we have somehow to mitigate between, on the one hand, the official appointments, mostly here in Gilgit, and the field trip. To some extent, I would say it was even a pleasure trip to see our projects, and but only the projects that were being performed in the Hunza Valley. But there are others I could not see.
They're also breathtaking, I must say.
Yeah, I know.
So are you satisfied with the projects going on here with the cooperation of Germany?
Yeah, by and large I am. Of course there's light and shade everywhere. I mean, you see very good projects, and I mentioned already this social intervention involving women. I was really impressed by that. I mean, I have sort of, let's say, inkling for women anyway, but I mean here I was really impressed what they can do, and to some extent even after discussing with their husband, with their brothers. I mean, in other parts of Pakistan that seems to be a problem. Here not that much. Of course, there are also differences.
Very enlightened kind of society we've got here.
I agree.
In the mountains.
I agree. And that other projects as well. We have power projects. Some are running very well, others not that much. It has to do with cooperation and so on and so forth. There's largesse sometimes in the system, but by and large we are making progress, and I'm quite satisfied with the successes scored so far.
That's good. Because you've got very limited time, and I'm very much aware of Maria. If I'm not wrong, she's constantly looking at us. And
she's our timekeeper.
Timekeeper,
Yes. Well, as I said, I spent 4 lovely days here. I think the main upshot I take with me to Islamabad is that this, I mean, as I said, I knew before that Pakistan is very diverse, but one of the, I would say, most lovable and most distinctive parcels or elements of diversity you find here in the north. It's Pakistan without any doubt, but it's a special part of Pakistan, and people living here can be and should be very proud to be here, and they should work on refining and intensifying this, I would say, special contribution they can make, and they are making toward the whole of Pakistan.
Your Excellency, it's really a matter of pride, as I said earlier, to have you here with us, and I never imagined that we'll be having so healthy and versatile kind of conversation here with you, sir. And the credit again goes to you, because you've got many aspects of your personality, like literature and diplomatic affairs and art lover and culture lover and can say landscape nature lover person we've got with us. Thank you very much for being in Radio Pakistan Gilgit-Baltistan.
Thank you for having me.